In this video, we're going to look at the tools, the verbal tools, the communication tools that will enable you to turn typically enraged emotions and angry discussions into calm, rational discussions that actually deal with things instead of just getting mad.
Right. And you know what? Even we are not perfect. We have to remind ourselves of this stuff sometimes. So, okay, let's go. So first of all, how did this become an interest to us?
Well, realize, first of all, why are we even talking about this? Well, you know, I am an NLP trainer, Chris, an NLP practitioner, and I was on CBC television in Toronto for 2 seasons as the communications specialist. So this is the kind of thing that is one of my fortes. I've taught this to the corporate world as well. So you can depend on this stuff as being useful information, because I like the metaphor. Relationships are like gardens. Now, close relationships, friendships, marriages, etc. If you groom them, you're trimming the weeds, you're looking after the flowers, they thrive, they grow. But if you ignore them, they tend to get overgrown and become a mess.
That's a really good metaphor. And also, if somebody plants a garden, it looks great in the beginning, the beginning of the relationship.
And then you leave it alone.
It looks all beautiful, but if you don't keep it up, it looks like crap after a while. And it doesn't matter if it's 6 months down the road or 30 years down the road, you still have to maintain it.
Yes, and it does take work, but it's worthwhile work if you're with somebody worthwhile and you're being worthwhile to them.
Yes.
Rule number one, it's very simple, and this is one I got from my father, and this has served me well. Keep the communication lines open, no matter what. So even if you get into an argument with someone close to you, you can't get in your car and storm away and go and stay in a hotel for 2 days without talking to your spouse or your significant other. That's just terrible. Sometimes men, especially according to Human Givens theory, have to leave the room and disconnect if it's getting too heated. And women need to understand it's different for men. They get the stress chemicals in their bloodstream, the cortisol and other stress chemicals like, epinephrine, and they are more liable to have a heart attack or a stroke. So they intuitively disconnect for a bit just to calm down. We need to give each other space to calm down. And then when we're calm down, we can keep it calm down with a little bit of work.
Okay, so keeping the communication lines open, I love this idea because a lot of the times people hesitate to bring up something. Like a relationship can get destroyed if something is really important to one person, not important at all to the other person's not meeting the needs of this need here,
right?
And then there's no communication. Eventually there's a breakdown, right? So you have to be able to find rational ways to talk about the things that are bothering you without casting blame and stuff like that.
That's it. Don't go to the ad hominems. Don't attack the other person. You always think that I said that he... That's a recipe for disaster. Right. And so you're going to be listening. You're going to keep the communication lines open. And, don't ghost anybody. That's a terrible practice. He knows that. A very good friend of mine ghosted me. Started in the year 2001.
Not a friend anymore.
Not a friend anymore. I made numerous attempts to connect. If I've done something, tell me. I left voice. Never, ever got back to me. So I've snipped that cord. He's not connected to me. He never will be now. But one of the things is when you are engaging with a conversation with someone important, and we should treat everyone as important, make sure that you are present. Don't be doing what he's doing. Don't be looking at your phone.
You're talking.
Sorry, yeah.
Let me put my phone down and pay full attention.
I've made a rule now, even at home. My wife starts to tell me something, I immediately set my phone down and I look at her.
Chuck it in the other room.
Be present. Be present with the person. It tells them that you value them. And that way you can pick up micro expressions too and calibrate their behavior. Your communication skills will be better as you're looking at the person instead of hoping that you're just getting it right somehow.
Yeah, and I like your next point here, which is get clarifications on things by asking careful questions, because if you don't understand, you don't want to be a jerk interrupting and mind reading and being like, well, you said this. No. If you didn't understand,
you think that I just want, I
heard you say such and such. Can you clarify what you mean?
What exactly do you mean by that? Yeah.
Right.
What exactly do you mean by feeling better?
We're asking questions in a way that is never blaming the other person. Well, you did a crappy job of explaining this, and I didn't. Just ask. Just ask. Treat the person that you would as if you would treat your best friend.
Get clarification. Listen instead of preparing your next point. That's something I used to do terribly. We're having an argument or a spirited discussion that's starting to go off the rails, and in my head, I'm just sort of listening half to what they're saying and waiting for my moment to jump in with some killer point. That's not a useful form of communication.
Exactly. You're not listening. Yes, I am.
And
no,
don't interrupt the other person ever.
That was a good demo. But the idea of planning in your head what you're going to say next and pretending you're listening. You all know when you're doing this, right? So catch yourself. Don't blame the other. Don't accuse someone else. Just know this for yourself. Model good behavior. And if you catch yourself thinking about what you're going to respond, that witty comeback, just go into park it and go into actual listening mode.
Very good. And when we get into a spirited discussion, it can start to heat up. And one of the keys is make sure you are being understood by the other person. Make clarifying statements. You can actually say, you know, that's not exactly what I meant. I understand what you're saying. Here's what I actually meant. Or I never said that. Here's what I said. Listen to what I'm but not listen to what I'm saying. You can get angry very quickly.
You can even soften it more and say, would it be okay if I re-explain so that I'm more clear about what I meant? You take the blame. Like, maybe I didn't explain this very well. Can I try again? Right.
That's great. Right. Another one is you can't read the person's mind. Don't think you know what they're thinking, and don't expect them to know what you're thinking. Well, if you're my friend, you'd know that I wanted to. No, ask for clarification. Don't do it sarcastically. Wait for a pause and of course you're not interrupting. Wait for a pause in the communication. And one of the things I find really useful with certain people who I'm no longer connected with, thank God, is diagram the discussion if you have to. Now, what that means is I know people who just, they communicate in a scattergun fashion. This makes them think of that. And then what was that thing you did last year? Boom, you've moved away from the sun, the center of the solar system. Now you're out in the moons of freaking Jupiter out here. So I would diagram it. Here's the actual point. Okay, let's come back to the real point here, just nicely, so you don't get arguing all around the discussion instead of discussing the point itself.
Recentering the discussion.
Nice. Right? I like it.
You
back to the sun.
Politely just, that's an important thing. We should talk about that. And when we're done talking about this, I'd be happy to talk about that too.
That's wonderful. He's using and instead of but. Notice there's no resistance. I'd be happy to talk about that and. Let's get there a bit later. But if you say but, we're talking, immediately gets their back up.
By the way,
go ahead.
Just before you go on to the next point, you know the idea of mind reading and you know, you always X or
I know that you think that
reverse mind reading. You should know. One of the things I think lines up very nicely with that is the idea of you make me, you know.
No one can make you do anything.
You made me feel unappreciated.
How specifically?
Like, actually, wait a second. Remember, you're responsible for your emotions. Nobody can make you. Certain things that happen can cause you to respond in a certain way, but you're the one responding. And you're the one responsible for your response. Therefore, don't use that you made me. And what's a good comeback, like not comeback in a dickish way, but if somebody says to you, well, you made me really angry, what would be a good way? I'm
sorry that you got angry, but I'm wondering how specifically did I make it happen? I'm just communicating with you.
And you can have a like when the emotions go away, you can have a conversation later and say, we have to agree that there's no making anyone feel X or Y. We are responsible for feeling. So instead,
responsible for our own states.
What can we say instead is when this happened, I felt angry.
You're describing history. Another one is, which is sort of on those notes about getting angry, is don't launch the nukes. This is a really important one. You know what the nuclear weapons are in your relationship. You know which things are. If you bring them up, it's going to put things into the ozone. Yeah, but last year you and Joanne did that thing, and I've still not forgiven you. That's a nuke. You know what? It could even be a smirk or a facial expression. You know it's going to irritate the other person. That's cheating. That's not communicating. Resist launching the nukes. And if the other person launches them, we recommend apply the 5-second rule. We talked about this before.
Yeah, there's a video on this that we did. Right.
5-second rule means instead of reacting, when someone makes a strong point, mentally count Kodak 1, Kodak 2, Kodak 3, Kodak 4. You don't have to sit there like stone face. You can look like you're considering it. 5 seconds is all you need. 10, 15 makes no difference. 5 seconds enables you to reset emotionally and you won't react and go off the rails. It's a powerful, powerful technique.
That's a good one. Okay.
All right.
Forget the old stuff and let it go.
Oh, gosh, let go of the old stuff. Love keeps no record of wrongs, 1 Corinthians 13.
Nice.
This is important. Agree to slay the zombies. And I taught this on Canadian
Zombie arguments, the ones that keep coming back from the dead. That's right.
Zombies keep coming back from the dead. Well, last year, we had that discussion, and now you're talking about something that is in history. You can't change the past. So agree. When you know you have a zombie argument, the two of you, and if it comes up, you're never going to if it comes up in your discussion afterwards, agree to kill that zombie. You might even write it down. I made zombie argument certificates and gave them to the hosts. So you write it and you both sign it. You can even get someone to witness it.
Yeah.
And you say, this zombie is dead. It's not coming back. And you both agreed to that when you were in a sane emotional place.
Right.
So that overrules, well, I know I said that, but no. You don't bring the zombies back.
That's good use of Cialdini's principle of commitment and consistency.
Yes.
You've committed that this is now over. Obviously, once you've had a resolution on it, if there isn't resolution, it's going to keep coming back. It's not actually dead until it's dead, right?
That's right. Let it stay buried.
It's dead. Right.
Now, there are 3 levels of discussion. We talked about this quite a bit. Level 1 is just data, like we're discussing this now.
Right.
There's no adrenaline trickling from my adrenal glands into my bloodstream that starts to ramp things up, raise my blood pressure, and so on. It's just information. It's rational discussion, rational discourse. When we get to level 2, we're starting to get a bit angry, and now adrenaline's starting to be released.
It can be, that same level can be a good emotion too, but we're speaking about it in a negative way generally here, that there's some anger or some resentment or something going on. But you could see the same thing with, well, something's kind of humorous, but we're not like crazy rolling off our chair.
I don't think you're going to get adrenaline from humor.
Right. It's a different response.
The fight, flight, freeze response.
Yeah.
So if you start to feel the anger coming in because what they're saying, whatever, use the 5-second rule before answering, pause and breathe and reset, and then come back to it. You can do that. If you catch it at the beginning, you can do that. If you get to level 3, where it's adrenaline drenched, screaming, swearing at each other, there's no way of getting from there to level 1. You have to disconnect till both of you calm down and then come back and be rational again.
Right. And maybe a good way to think about it would be level 1 would be, imagine you're having a conversation with ChatGPT. You're asking it information. You're asking it to explain something to you. There's no emotion, right?
None whatsoever.
Right. But if you're talking to a real person and that person starts to get a little irritated, or you start getting irritated, you don't get, I mean, I suppose people get mad at ChatGPT. No, you're not, So if you catch yourself doing that,
stupid.
That's a great way to think of it, is if you're having a dialogue about something that is problematic, that's when you need to be aware of this the most, right?
Absolutely. Right. And let's just end it by saying this. This was said by King Solomon. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. What does that mean? It means resolve stuff before you go to bed. Don't bring your arguments into your bedroom with you. Never argue in your bedroom. Sit down rationally in your living room if you're living with someone important to you, and realize taking it up to your bedroom is a mistake. And letting the sun go down in your anger means staying really pissed off, and one of you sleeps on the couch and the other one sleeps. That's terrible. And Dr. Mori, I heard years ago, say in his house at 11 p.m., if the argument's still going on with a family, at 11 p.m., everybody's right. He just says, you're right. Everybody's right now. Refuses to talk about it past 11 p.m.
Right. Bring it up fresh.
Find what works for you.
Fresh eyes, fresh thoughts in the morning, and don't go to bed angry.
Fresh coffee in the morning.
So there we have it. I mean, I don't know if we need to do a quick recap
Probably not.
on this. I think it's pretty straightforward stuff, guys. So you have to own your emotions. You have to be responsible for the way that you react. You have to ask clarifying questions. Stay away from getting overly emotional. Take that 5 seconds to calm down.
Yes.
There we go. I just summarized pretty much most of it in 10 seconds. Could have made this video
And you
shorter.
stayed at level 1.
All right. We'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks once again, and good night.